Hello all, this is my city water powered backup sump pump system. This is a Liberty SJ10, which is a very popular model. And the challenge about this install is that I've got a radon system. As you can see, there's the radon tube. And because of the radon system, the lid over this crock is sealed. And I had to fabricate a 1/4 inch thick flange. It's made out of acrylic, and I cut a hole in the original sump lid or crock lid so that the float and the suction tube could insert into there, and then I caulked it all up. And when I caulked it, I let the caulk harden on the original radon lid so that it wouldn't stick to the flange, so I can actually remove this thing to service the crock. I just need to take these 6 screws out and then break these unions, both on the inlet and discharge side, and then this pump will just lift out. And it's very important to keep this crock clean, because any little pebble will find its way in and jam your pump. So keeping your crock clean is crucial to reliable sump pump performance. So that's how the pump is installed. Now on the inlet side, I use 3/4 inch copper. I got my shutoff valve right here, so it's easy to tell what it's for. This tees into my existing city water supply, and this is a dual check valve, which is an approved backflow device for the state of Illinois. If you look closely, it says ASSE 1024, and that is an approved backflow protection device under the Illinois Plumbing Code section 890.1130, and it just ties into the municipal water supply. Now on the discharge side, I've got 1.5 inch PVC, I've got a 1.5 inch check valve, and I actually removed the check valve that was supplied with the Liberty SJ10. It's a foot valve that is an optional valve, and I decided to take it out just because I wanted to have less restriction, and I prefer to have this type of check valve because it has less restriction. Notice that I have a separate discharge line that goes out the side of the house, and this discharge line, once it gets up to the floor joist, it has a downward slope all the way until it exits the house and dumps out on my patio. Now you can tee this discharge line and share it with the primary sump pump, but it's recommended not to, and there's 4 reasons why it's best to have a separate discharge line. Number 1, if the primary pump is working well, it's best not to mess with it. Number 2, if, let's say, this secondary discharge line was teed into this, if either one of these check valves were to fail, your city water can go back up and flow back into the pit and flood your basement. Or if this one were to fail, then the sump pump can start pumping, and some water will actually fall back into the pit. So either way, you could still get a flooded basement. So the worst thing that could happen is if this check valve were to fail and you have both city water and sump water just filling up in your crock and flooding your basement. Reason number 3 is that if we both shared the same line, and this line is buried, it goes out to the stormwater tile that leads to the street. If this were to be clogged, then neither of the pumps will work and you'll end up with a flooded basement. Reason number 4 is if the level of incoming water is so high into the crock in a severe storm where your primary sump pump can't keep up, your secondary pump will also kick on, and they'll both be competing to pump water out to this one pipe. So they could be interfering with each other's operation. So those are 4 reasons why it's best to have a separate discharge line, so that they won't interfere with each other and you won't introduce a second failure mode for the primary pump. Okay. So the way this works is that as this float valve is opened up, city water will come in here and run through the venturi, and as it does, it draws up sump water. There's a foot valve in here that's like a check valve to prevent water from going back down into the pit. And here's that foot valve. The way this thing works, the way this switch works, I'm going to remove this float assembly. You can see right down there is a little weep hole, and this is a magnetic actuated switch. So there's a piece of rubber right there. So as I push this float up, the magnet gets close enough that it sucks this little poppet in. See that? And once this poppet gets sucked in, that little piece of rubber on there pulls away from this weep hole, which relieves the pressure on the diaphragm inside, which allows the city water to open the valve and go through. And then once the level goes down, this little poppet, the spring pushes it back up, closes the weep hole, then city water pressure builds and closes the diaphragm and shuts that valve. And that all happens very quickly, so you hear a little bit of a bang in the system. So that's how that works. So when I put this on, make sure you got this little rubber seal in there. To make it easier to put on, I activate the valve and carefully, very carefully twist this on. It's a little bit fragile. Just do it very finger tight only. And that's how that valve works. Should be a pretty reliable system. So the instructions recommending setting the level of the pump about 12 inches above the water level that will activate the pump. Now when I did my measurement, I measured 17 inches, so that's obviously much more than 12 inches. So I don't think I can meet that with the Radon system unless I have a weird looking cover that dips down, or I have to raise my sump, which I don't really want to mess with because it's working well. So at a minimum, I at least want to see that my backup will at least operate below the 2 water inlets, those 2 black tubes that go into the crock. So I used a garden hose. And I've got the water level just a little below those 2 inlets, almost touching, and I'm going to measure the depth. No, it's right around 11 inches. So now when I take a look at the pump, okay, the pump will definitely be submerged till about 14 inches, so that should be okay. I also want to see what level the float will activate at. I've got it set as low as I comfortably got it right now. Only about a 1/4 inch of tubing left, or stainless steel rod left. Only about a 1/4 inch of stainless rod left. I want to see at what water level will this activate with respect to the bottom of this pump. Okay, just clicked. Measure the water level to the bottom of this pump. It's right around 11 inches. So this pump will activate right before the water level goes up to these inlets. And that's the best it can get. Actually, I lose a 1/4 inch because my plexiglass plate's going to be about a 1/4 inch thick. But that should be okay. Okay, so I'm starting to cut into this lid to try to make room to insert this pump. This plastic is pretty stubborn to cut, so I had to use my adjustable hole saw. I've got it as big a diameter as it can cut. So I already did that one, and then for the wider end of the float I just made 2 holes. You can see that. Just was careful not to let them fall in there, but it's not going to matter. I'm going to vacuum all that out. Next thing I'm going to do is finish the hole by using the Sawzall and just cutting here. Okay, it's not the prettiest hole in the world, but I'll clean it up the best I can. I've got this paint stripper attachment that should work pretty nice. Polish up the edges and make them nice and smooth. Okay, now is the opportunity to clean out this pit. So I'm really vacuuming out this sump real good. When I get all the pebbles out, any debris that could jam up the sump pump. A lot of sump pump failures are just due to debris and not due to the pump itself. Now just rinse it down really good. I already see some leaks. Well, this whole thing's leaking. I probably got to redo the caulk on this. All that banging around and it didn't help either. Square this thing back up the way we want it. Tighten this back up. Make sure my hands are dry. And plug her in. Got the crock all cleaned out. No pebbles, no nails or anything that could get into the pump and jam it. The best thing you can do for your sump pump is keep this crock clean, and it will thank you and give you many years of good service. Okay, so this is how this pump is going to sit in there. Just like that. There's plenty of clearance along the float, and there's clearance to the original float on the primary sump pump. And good clearance to the inlet. Okay, so I roughed out this piece of acrylic. It's about 1/4 inch thick, and it's going to fit roughly along here like this. I'm going to drill 2 holes in here to clear this diameter here, and then it's going to clear this diameter here. This is 1.5 inches. And this is actually a little bit more than 2 inches. It's like 2 1/8 inch. Okay, so for the instructions, I'm marking out 4 1/8 inch center to center. First one, 4 1/8, right there. Try this on. Right on. There we go. And that fits in there just like that. Okay, so I've got this hole centered over this. I'm going to see how far away we are from the hole that we marked out. And it's quite a ways off. It's possible that the drill could have walked a little bit, but that's quite a bit off. I'm going to remark that hole. Just going to do it by eye. Right there. Okay. Not sure why it's off by that much, but that's going to be more accurate than the original mark that I made. Okay, so I've got this saw set to 1.5 inch, and I just double checked here. One and a half. I'm going to drill the hole that I just marked. Should be good. Let's try it out. Okay, it fits. Now here's the real test. Let's try it out fully assembled. There you have it. So now I'm going to drill these holes out, and then to seal this off I'm going to run a line of silicone caulk all around these, and that will seal this assembly up. Center it up the best I can. Mark the first hole. Okay, so let's see this thing. I got this thing trimmed up the way I like it. I drilled 6 holes to secure this assembly onto the top of the radon cover. Line up the holes. I just used some drill bits. Make sure the holes line up. All 6 line up right on. And notice I've got enough clearance on the float. Notice I've got enough clearance to the float, and I've got good clearance to the inlet. So to finish securing these, I have number 10 by 3/4 inch stainless steel sheet metal screws, and I'm going to drill the hole through with a 9/64 drill bit, and then I'm going to take this off and drill the clearance holes with a 3/16 drill bit. Okay, so here it is, the fully assembled pump. Notice I've got unions on both the discharge side and the inlet side, so I can easily take it out. And I've caulked up the float assembly, and I've caulked up the suction line, and I took out the foot valve because I have a check valve that's just on top of this union, so I prefer having a separate check valve because it has less restriction than this one. And I secured this to the acrylic with some 1024 machine screws and lock nuts that are stainless steel. Alright, let's try this out. The water level's almost up to the bottom of the inlets. Yep, there it goes. I'm gonna pinch this hose to shut it off. That's it. Makes a little noise at the end, but that's about it. Alright, so it's working. Okay, now that the installation is complete, just have to check your sump pumps periodically because they do fail from time to time. On your primary pump, sometimes this integrated float will fail. Either the contacts will go bad or the float will stick, and you can replace that or even upgrade it with a externally mounted float. Sometimes the pump is just fine, it just needs a new float switch. And on the sump jet, because this float only works when this pump fails, it may not get used much, so this needs to be tested every once in a while. Just unplug your sump pump and either let it fill up or just fill it with a hose and just test it every once in a while. Well, I hope that this has helped someone out there, or at least given some ideas to you. Thanks a lot for watching.